Thank you, everybody. So this particular module will be focusing on what's considered the axial region of the anatomy. So that means things on the trunk as opposed to the extremities. So what the trunk or the medial aspect of the anatomy, midline, sorry, the midline aspect of anatomy. So that includes cervical aspect as well, and also that includes head and neck. So the order that I'll be presenting this information is I'm going to start with the torso for today. Hopefully get everything done. And then tomorrow we will focus on the neck, face, and etc. Let's begin by looking at the posterior aspect of the torso. And what you're looking at here on the top right is a cross section of the vertebrae. And the diagram is oriented such that the top of the picture is the anterior aspect of the body, and the bottom of the picture is the posterior aspect of the body. And so this bony process here is the spinous process. That's where we locate points like the governing vessel points. And then these two symmetrical processes are the transverse processes. And as you can see, the spinal cord rests between the processes and the what's known as vertebral body, and it is on top of adjacent vertebral bodies that you'll find the vertebral disc. And so this kind of familiarizes us with the general bony anatomy in this region. Now we're ready to talk about the nervous system anatomy. From the spinal cord, which runs in kind of north and south kind of way, in between every vertebral segment, there are nerves that come out laterally, and these nerves are called spinal nerves. And the spinal nerves would then divide or ramify in a way into three sections that's called trifurcation. You'll see one that's coming forward towards the front of the body, and that's called ventral rami. Sometimes you'll see that term used as anterior rami, that's used interchangeably. There is one that goes posteriorly, and that's called the posterior rami. Sometimes you'll see people use the term dorsal rami, okay, that's used interchangeably. And the third and last division is this little guy over here. And this is what's called the sympathetic chain. So so every segment of the vertebrae does this triple division, and these sympathetic chains communicate above and below adjacent segments, hence forming a chain. So you can actually think of the vertebrae as the spinal cord as being like the north-south channel, but on either side of it, because slightly more in front, anterior to it, there's a parallel channels or chains. So in total, there are three of them in total. Okay, and what I want to highlight is that these ventral rami or dorsal rami, they will innervate muscles as well as skin. So as you can see, these nerves innervate these muscle clusters. So we'll talk more about what they are in a moment. And so these branches represent the branches that go into the muscle. But then there are branches that come out into the surface to supply the skin. So these are called, the one that supply the skin that's called cutaneous nerves. And same thing is true with the anterior rami. It will innervate some muscles. And what are these muscles? If it's in the level of the rib cage, then these would be the intercostal muscles. But it would also emerge on the skin to innervate the cutaneous aspect too. So this picture doesn't show those aspects, but when we come to the more anterior aspect of the body, then we'll be of the torso, then we'll be able to see those cutaneous nerves a little better. For now, we're going to focus on mostly the posterior aspect. Okay, so imagine when you're putting needles in like the huatojiaji, or you're putting needles in the bladder line, you are interacting with dorsal rami, okay, or posterior rami, and that information would be received by the dorsal rami, and it will return back into the spinal cord. Okay, and so what I have prepared on the left here are the names of the acupuncture points that are located within this dorsal musculature area. And so we call these paraspinal muscles or erector spinae muscles. Just means that these are muscles that makes the vertebrae erect or stand upright. And so the anatomy is pretty repetitive here. You know, if you're at the level of T1, then you're going to be affecting the dorsal rami of the first thoracic nerve. Your level of T2, you're going to be affecting the dorsal of the second thoracic nerve, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I don't think it's necessary for us to go through every single one of them. It's pretty self-evident. But the obviously we will apply the term thoracic nerve only if it's in the thorax. If it's in the abdominal area, then it would not be a thoracic nerve. So these nerves that emerge from the intervertebral area are collectively called thoraco-abdominal nerves. Without distinguishing which segment it is, it's all inclusive, includes thorax and abdomen. But we can then uncouple those terms apart to be more specific. If it's in the levels of the ribs, then we call them thoracic ones. For the ones where there are no ribs, we call the abdominal ones. Okay, but the proper terminology, they're called thoraco-abdominal nerves. And the point location that I've provided in the course notes here comes from the systematic classic. Systematic classic is called also known as Zhenzhou Jiayi Jing. Okay, and sometimes people translate that as the ABC of acupuncture, and it has a reputation of being the first complete acupuncture manual, meaning that what we inherited from the Huangdi Jing, which is the Ling Su and the Su Wen, is incomplete. It only has a subset of acupuncture points. It only has about 160 acupuncture points. Zhenzhou Jiayi Jing or Systematic Classic has 349 acupuncture points. So the difference that we now know the certain points that are located here and how to needle them. For example, what's the depth, puncture a certain depth, how long to retain it, how many breaths, even with moxa, how much moxa to use. That information was first passed down from the Systematic Classic. So what I've done is I've transliterated from the original Chinese, which I included here as well, so that we can compare and contrast how point location information is similar to the modern time, but how in certain situations they are different than modern time. And so if I don't really specify any nuances, then it's the assumption is that they're the same as what we learned in school, what we did to pass the exams. But there are some interesting instances where the anatomy information has more depth, or point location may differ slightly from what we learned in school. And so when those interesting situation arises, then I'll take special time to talk about it. Okay, and now if this point is one of the 160 points that's been passed down from the Ling Su, then I will also include the point location. So I refer to these as classic point location, meaning from the Ling Su or from the Jiayi Jing, just to distinguish it from the modern locations. Okay, so in case when I say, you know, according to the classical location, what classic is he talking about? Is the Ling Su or the Systematic Classic? And of course, there are classics in the Qing and Ming dynasty that are relatively more recent dynasty, that those are considered classics as well. But I'm talking about like the really early classics.